What's up guys, welcome to your 13th JavaScript tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to be teaching you guys how to write a for loop. Now what this kind of loop does, it allows you to run a specific code or script however many times you specify it to. So you can either run it one time or 100, and it can do it all automatically depending on what you tell JavaScript to do. So the first thing we need before we even type what code it is a variable. And we need this because first we need to tell it how many times to run. So most of the time when people use for loops, they use an integer with the value of I, and they set it equal to either 1 or 0. I'm going to set mine equal to 0. This is just because I and 0 is some of the most simple and plain integers to work with. And the syntax for a for loop is just the word for. Then you add your parameters, and this tells JavaScript that we're going to be typing our for loop in here. Now inside your parameters you have to type 3 separate things. The first thing you type is what variable you're using and what you want to set its initial value to. So we already have this variable I equals 0, so in the loop we're going to be using I equals 0. That's our first value, and we're going to be setting it equal to 0, so it can start at 0. You separate elements. What's up everyone, and welcome to my 14th JavaScript tutorial, I think it is. In the last tutorial we talked about a for loop, and what the for loop does is allow us to loop an action a certain number of times. And this time we're going to be talking about the while loop. And what this loop does is allow us to loop an action as long as something else is true. So let me just go ahead and code this and talk you through. The first thing you need for a while loop is the syntax while, W-H-I-L-E. And then, actually, the first thing we need before any of that is a variable. So let's make a variable I equals, and let's just set it equal to 0 for right now. And of course, add your semicolon. And the next condition that we want to run is called a while loop. And like I said, this allows you to run the function a certain number of times. So let's go ahead and type a while, and that's the syntax for this. And in your parentheses right here, you want to type however many times you want it to loop. So we're going to say, as long as I, our variable, is less than or equal to 10. What's up everybody, welcome to my 15th JavaScript tutorial. And in the last tutorial, as you can see, we talked about a while loop, so let's get rid of that. And in this tutorial I'm going to be teaching you about something called a break. Now I'm going to be using this in our for loop, so let's go ahead and create a basic for loop. And if you remember from a couple tutorials ago, the syntax for a for loop, you just put for, then you make a variable. I'm going to make mine I is always, and set it equal to 0 as usual. And then our next, I'm going to make it I and say do this loop whenever the integer is less than or equal to 10. And then in our last, you say what you want to increment it by, and I'm going to increment it by 1 every time. So now that we have that, we need an action. So every time our integer fits these rules, I'm going to say document write, which just means output on the screen. Same thing as before if you watched my last tutorial. I'm going to say the number is, move this so you can see, and then I'm just going to add, make sure you put a space right here, it'll make it easier to read. Just going to add the number, and then on my next line, what's up everybody, welcome to my 16th JavaScript tutorial, and this is probably going to be the easiest tutorial on JavaScript that I'm putting out so far. And in order to watch this, you need to watch my last tutorial because I talked about everything. In my last tutorial, we talked about a break in JavaScript and how it will stop the code. And in this scenario, we went the integer from 0 through 10, and we said once it got to 5, we want to break the code and stop doing whatever we're doing. But let's say you just wanted to skip the number 5. So guys, welcome to your 17th tutorial in JavaScript. And in this tutorial I'm going to be talking to you guys about objects, which is a very important part of a lot of programming languages, and especially JavaScript. Now, if you've never worked with objects before, I'm going to give you guys a quick introduction. And JavaScript is one of the many languages that you can actually build your own objects. Now, what an object is, we'll kind of learn as we're going along, but objects have two main components to them, and those are properties and methods. And properties are any value of the object. So let me go ahead and begin showing you guys what this means. Just type a variable and we'll name it word. Let me move my cursor out of the way so you can see. And it's actually going to be 2 words, and I'm going to type hello Bob. And this is just a common string variable. And in the next, I'm going to write document write, and I'm going to have a property that shows us what the length of the object is for the variable. So